Dr. D. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about times in your transition that could happen when you start seeking validation of your gender identity, especially validation of whether you have achieved passability, if that's your goal, passability or not, through sexuality, through sexual attraction, through sexual relationship. This is different than the video I did on compensating with your biological sex. I'm going to link it below. In today's video, what I want to talk about is this concept, well, it's not really a concept, it's something that I tend to observe with individuals, where there is, and this is actually going to fall into a very binary, very heteronormative view, because that's just what I tend to continuously observe. But it's where an individual starts to seek or starts to want to have either sexual relationship or either to be desired, complimented, or seen as attractive by the opposite gender. Again, this is very binary. It tends to be also very heteronormative, male-female. And it has lesser to do with your internal, at least in my experience I observed, with your internal view, whether you believe the world is binary or not, but more with perhaps the contextual schema that you have developed as a byproduct of the worldview. Sadly, today's worldview pretty much is still binary view. In today's world, majority of people still very much see male, female, and it is a very highly heteronormative view where people are seeing relationships through a very binary lens. And I have observed this with individuals, especially tend to observe it most with trans women, sometimes with trans men also, and less with individuals who identify as non-binary. But I've seen it mostly with trans women, and it usually happens at a point in transition when you start to feel confident and you get that momentum and you start to feel really good about yourself. It can happen as a result of hormone changes or as a result of social transition or as a result of surgical transition. But it's a point in your transition when you're starting to feel confident and good and you're starting to see yourself and really solidify your sense of self. And you start seeking out relationships. And perhaps you're ready to go out there and explore and have either just open relationships or intimate relationships. And there's a tendency to want, that I have observed, to be desired, to be seen as attractive by an opposite gender. For trans women, that would be a tendency to be seen as attractive by a man, a tendency to have a man want to have a relationship with you. Sometimes it's a desire to have sexual relationships with men. For trans men, I see that as a desire to be wanted and seen as attractive by a woman. A lot of times it tends to be lesser embedded in your sexuality, at least in what I have observed, meaning that a lot of times trans women that I observe engaging in this are not even necessarily interested in men in terms of their sexual orientation, but there's something internally tends to drive this desire where it becomes a dependency of a way to validate your sense of possibility for yourself. And I see that over and over again, especially in individuals who perhaps are, I would say, around 27 and about maybe age of 40. For some reason, there's that age gap that tends to show this more and more. But it's a period where some of you feel that need to put the check mark internally that if an opposite gender finds you attractive, that means you have achieved that level of possibility. The cautionary thing here, maybe not so much cautionary, but something to think about, is to ask yourself in that instance whether you are wanting to have this relationship, wanting to have these attractions, because you are sexually exploring your sexuality, whether you're really sexually attracted to those individuals, or maybe you're just exploring and you don't know, and that's fine, or if you're doing it because you need validation. Now, if you're doing it because you need validation, that is, in my book, that is okay too, because as human beings, we constantly seek an external validation in order to build internal validation. They tend to go hand in hand. What I think is important is to realize that if you're doing it over and over and over again, you tend to fall into the cyclical trap, right? Where you're relying so much on this external validation for your sense of identity, and there comes a point where you need to give it to yourself internally, where you need to give yourself that assurance and confidence without necessarily being reliant so much on other people. But that's what I tend to observe. Again, this tends to be very heteronormative point of view, very binary point of view. And sometimes I have people talk to me and tell me that they don't know why they keep going and keep going out on dates or keep going and having relationships with people of opposite gender when they're starting to wonder, wait a second, I'm not even interested in them sexually. And then they realize, oh, perhaps it could be, yes, perhaps I am constantly seeking that inner validation, that I am in fact a woman or that I am in fact a man. Again, very binary language here, but this is what I tend to observe, and it is very highly heteronormative. And if we really look at it, it's not the best point of view, because as we know, sexuality and relationship go beyond heteronormative norms, and so is gender. But be mindful that that might be happening for you, and always be mindful whether you're compensating with anything or whether you tend to fall into overcompensating for things. Mindfulness will often lead to exploring that, and exploration will often lead to some form of modification in our behavior, and that's really important. So comment below, let me know whether you have experienced this, or whether you think you may be experiencing it now or at some point in your relationships. And I'd love to hear from you. As always, I read your comments. I think they're very valid. I think they're very important. I think that help everybody else as well. So comment below, let me know what you think, if you had this experience, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.